What up, everybody? How's it going? All right. Let's see. What time is it now? It's Sunday, January 22 at 7 p.m. And uh, the episode 2, or part 2, I should say, of HBO's adaptation, live action adaptation of The Last of Us just finished airing on East Coast time. Remember, East Coast 9 p.m., here, West Coast is 6. But I want to make my review right after the East Coast time. So if you haven't seen it yet, if you haven't seen tonight's episode, those of you who live in the West Coast, um, heads up. This video contains spoilers, okay? This review is only for those of you who have already watched tonight's episode 2 or part 2 of The Last of Us. Again, spoiler alert, this video only for those of you who have seen the East Coast airing of The Last of Us season 1 episode 2. So before we start, let's double check that we are live, because sometimes YouTube kind of mess me up. I want to make sure that we are actually live streaming right now. Otherwise, I'd have to probably do the whole thing all over again. Okay, I think we are live. Okay, cool. What's with the Domino's? Okay. So, I got my notes on the screen here. By the way, if you're wondering what am I wearing, I'm wearing Arsenal t-shirt. We won today against Manchester United. I love it. I'm on cloud 9. So happy about that. So happy and together. Anyway, um, the flashback scene on tonight's The Last of Us episode 2 was set in Jakarta, Indonesia. Why does that matter? Because I came from Jakarta, Indonesia. If you haven't noticed, I have an accent, and I'm an immigrant turned U.S. citizen. So I was born and raised in Jakarta, Indonesia. So when I saw that episode, or tonight's episode, and it's like, whoa, Jakarta, Indonesia, 2003. Oh, that's amazing. That's awesome. I was geeking out. I was so happy. And I tweeted this when I screened the episode, because HBO gave me the advanced screener the other day. So I tweeted like, man, it's so cool to see not only Indonesia featured on The Last of Us, but also Indonesian actors featured on The Last of Us. Most of the times when Hollywood makes a movie or Hollywood makes a show, and for some reason they have a scenario or a scene set in Jakarta, Indonesia. Oftentimes they'd rather cast Filipino or Pinoy or Thailand or Thai actors posing as Indonesians, Jakarta. Because back then, or when I was growing up watching these movies, and like, man, these guys are not Indonesians. What are they doing? I think Matthew McConaughey has a movie called Gold that was like that. It was set in Indonesia, but the actors are all like Pinoys and stuff. Um, so it's refreshing to see Indonesian actors, and one of them on tonight's episode is a legend. Her name is Christine Hakim. She's like the Indonesian equivalents to maybe Meryl Streep or Shirley MacLaine. Christine Hakim has won a lot of Piala Citra, which is like an Indonesian version of Oscar. And she's been in the business forever. So she played a mycologist. Mycologist is an expert on fungi, an expert on fungi and infection related to fungi. Um, that's what she played tonight. She was asked by the policeman, who's also Indonesian, and asked by the policeman to come to the lab. There's a victim on the table, a factory worker that went on a rampage, and she was examining her, and she found out this infection, this fungi thing this um, thing that grows out of her mouth. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's so freaking out. I'm scared by that as well. So that was a great scene. That was a fantastic flashback scene. And so congrats to Christine Hakim, Indonesian legend. for showing up on the Last of Us episode 2. That was pretty cool. By the way, episode 2, tonight's episode, is also directed by Neil Druckmann. He's the guy behind the video game. As I mentioned to you many times, I'm not a gamer. Okay, I've never played the Last of Us video game. Um, as a matter of fact, not until like after last week's episode aired that you guys pointed out, hey Rama, that episode last week was pretty much a play-by-play adaptation of the video game. An exact copy of what happened in the video game, the story in the video game. And somebody did a side-by-side comparison of that play-by-play on Twitter. They posted it on Twitter. It's like, oh, okay, now I see the whole pickup truck scene thing. That was straight from out of the game. So that was cool. That was really cool. Last week's episode was directed by Craig Mazin, the guy who gave us Chernobyl series. Tonight's episode is directed by Neil Druckmann, the guy who gave you the video game. That's pretty cool, right? That's pretty awesome. And I think he did a fantastic job with tonight's episode. Tonight's overall reaction, right off the bat, it was very suspenseful, very scary, especially when the infected started attacking them in that building. I was like, oh my god, run, hide. But I also want to talk about a bit about the dynamics between Joel and Ellie. The banters that they have, because she wanted to get her hands on a weapon, but Joel's like, no, you're not getting a weapon. Are you crazy? So at one point she's like, hey, I got spare hands, and he's like, congratulations. It's those little jabs, those little banters. They obviously don't like each other's guts. That was pretty entertaining. All right, I gotta be honest with you, that was pretty amusing. Obviously, Joel, on tonight's episode, Joel treated Ellie like an annoying third wheel. Like he never wanted to. The way he saw Ellie was like, oh, this girl is slowing us down. This girl is a burden. Why is she so special? I don't want to babysit her. And of course, later on, they found out why she's special. And I joked. I think I said, you know what? Maybe Joel thinks that Ellie's a cock block. Maybe Joel wants to journey together alone with Tess so they can still fuck along the way with nobody watching them around. I'm kidding. In seriousness, though, Joel probably still had PTSD from having lost her daughter, and so he probably would not want anybody tagging along that would remind him of that, especially somebody like Ellie, who is sort of similar, of the same age, sort of, to her daughter. He doesn't want that responsibility. He doesn't want that reminder. I get it. It does make for amusing, for an entertaining banter and dynamics between them, definitely. But of course, as you have seen from tonight's episode, eventually Tess forced Joel's hand at the end to take care of Ellie. But before we get to Tess, I want to talk about the infected. Is that what you call it? Those of you who play the video game, is there a name for them? How in The Walking Dead they are called the walkers instead of zombies. Are they called the infected? I tried to look it up. I don't know what the term is. So if you guys know, if you guys play the video game and want to tell me what you call these infected, what the term is for them, let me know. But for now, I'll call them the infected. That scene, when the infected were attacking them in the building, the suspenseful scene. I'm not sure if it's a combination of practical makeup and probably visual effects, but man, holy crap. That thing on their head, that fungi mushroomy thing on their head, got me all squirmy, man. All squirmy and wiggly. I'm like, oh, I don't want to see that thing, man. That shit is making me all twitchy and, ugh. Including the mushroom stuff on the door. I don't know, man. Maybe it's just me, I don't know if any of you guys share the same out there, same feeling, but anything fungi or anything mushroom related always gets me squirmy because they're like mold on the wall, like that door thing, that we saw in the episode tonight. So far, so I'm sorry, they're like that thing that just sticks there. There's like a lot of them, and so for that to be sticking out of somebody's head, when we're used to seeing them sticking out of the ground or sticking out of the door or sticking out of a wall, for that to be sticking out of somebody's head like that, just like ew. It was. I gotta be honest with you. It was really tough to watch that whole sequence. On top of it being scary, of course, because they were like, coming after or coming at Joel, coming at Ellie and Tess. That was very very scary. And I would even venture to say that because of that whole sequence, episode 2 tonight was significantly scarier than episode 1 last week. When the world went to hell in a handbasket. This is Tonight is the episode that establishes this adaptation or this show as a horror thriller, right? Um, yeah, I would venture to say that. Last week, the whole thing trying to get away from the chaos and the crowd, that was also pulse pounding, but it's more like sort of like action suspense thriller. But tonight was horror. That's like, okay, this is it. We're in this now. We mean business. The infected or the zombies or the walkers, whatever you want to call it, they're coming at you. Um, Anna Torv, I love her. I was a big fan of Fringe. I was so happy when I found out that she was on this show, and now I'm so sad that that she's only on this show for like 1 or 2 episodes. Like, oh, dang it! Maybe she'll come back for a flashback or maybe memory scene. I don't know. But she plays Tess, and she got infected, and it's like it bums me out, man. I was like, oh, dude, really? You cast Anna Torv only for a couple of episodes? Really? You only got her for 2 episodes? Really? Oh man, that's so not fair. You could get more out of her. She's a fantastic actress. Um, but I get it. This is the episode, and her storyline is the one that catapults Joel and Ellie, the famous duo, on the video game. I get it. I get it. And I think, and I'm predicting, I'm guessing, I'm assuming that what happened on tonight's episode with Tess, bombing herself with the rest of the infected, so that Joel and Ellie could get away. That whole thing, what happened on tonight's episode, is gonna deeply impact Joel's personally on episode 3 as he journeys on with Ellie. Meaning that if Joel doesn't like Ellie on tonight's episode, oh, he's gonna not like her even more next week. You know what I'm saying? Cause why? Cause he's gonna blame her, like even without saying it. Tess is my girl. I love Tess. Now I gotta hang around with you. Because Tess believes that you're special and Tess has to die, but you get to live. Like, that's not what I want. I don't want to. So I like that. This tonight's episode, even though it bums me out that Tess had to die, but it would make for an interesting drama and dynamic between Joel and Ellie. Maybe it's gonna get more even tense between them next week. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But Anna, oh man, such a great actress. Love her to death. And she's so hot, bro. So hot. Have you seen Fringe? She's amazingly hot in that show. So, sorry, I'm eating at the same time because I'm hungry. Which leads me to my last point before I end this review. So yeah, another great episode. Like I said last week, it's probably only gonna get better from here because everybody's praising this show about it being a great live action adaptation of video game ever. But that leads to my last point. Remember, I told you that I didn't know until the end of last week's episode that the whole pickup truck scene was a copy, play by play reenactment, if you will, of what of the scene from the video game. I didn't know that, and then somebody pointed out on Twitter. I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. So I guess what I'm getting at is people have been praising this show, right? For it being faithful to the video game, a faithful adaptation, if you will. Um, so is that the reason why it's a great video game adaptation? That it would have to be exactly just like how it was in the walkthrough or the gameplay, whatever you want to call it. Like it has to be like I'm wondering if tonight's episode 2, was also a carbon copy of or a play by play of the story from the video game. I don't know. You tell me. I don't play the video game, so I'm not criticizing that. I think I think a lot of people who are gamers, they get disappointed when they see an adaptation of their video game because they're like, this is not how I remember the games. Like this adaptation sucks. This is not what the way the video game. This is not how the story went in the video game. So and etc. 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 So now here comes The Last of Us, that seems to be really following it down to the T, like that pickup truck scene last week. Is that how it's gonna be? The whole 9 episodes, this entire first season, is just gonna be a live action reenactment, exact carbon copy of the video game? I mean, I guess if that's what you want and if that's what makes you happy, gamers, kudos to you. Kudos to you. And maybe that is how you grade it, or how that's the measurement or the standard that you have for whether or not this is a great video game adaptation, in that it follows it down to the T, exactly. But I also wonder, like, um, one, is it gonna be like that the whole season, the first season, or can this show have something that's unique to its own? Can this show be its own beast? You know what I'm saying? Can this show have some things here and there that are separate from the game? Are they allowed to deviate? Some of the storylines or some of the outcomes, some of the why not? Like, because if you if you would argue like, okay, that's cool. Everything from the video game is translated to the live action adaptation. That's awesome. But it would be also awesome, hear me out. It would be also kind of awesome if the show has its own thing or deviates, here and there, that's unique and that's kind of cool, and then and it makes you say, "Oh, that's pretty neat. I would love to see that translates to the video game." That part on the show, it would be nice to have that be um, done by the game designers, to be adapted, if you will, into the video game, right? So it could go the other way around, vice versa. I think that would be kind of cool. Look, I'm not poo-pooing on the fact that it's following or it's faithful to the video game. I think that if that makes you happy, that's awesome. Um, but it'd be kind of cool too if the show has its own thing. If it has its own, maybe in some episodes it can forge its own path. You know what I'm saying? To make it separate, sort of, from the video game. It may throw in you some curveball or some twists and turns and surprises that's not on the video game. You know what I'm saying? It'd be kind of nice, wouldn't it? Um, so I'm just saying that. I'm just saying that. So if you disagree with me on that, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. Again, I still enjoy this adaptation. All right, even though I haven't played the game, and I'll be sticking around for the rest of the 9 episodes or the rest of the season, because I like the characters, and tonight's episode was scary. I wanted scary, and that's what it gave me. And yeah, I can't wait to see what their duo adventure unfolds. Now that, as you know, Ellie is special because she might hold the key to the cure. You know, Joel is very cynical about vaccine, like, oh, we've gone through this before. Um, but now it's like there's a glimmer of hope in Ellie. You know, this very feisty, sassy girl with lots of fire in her. And great performances, by the way, again by Pedro and Bella. So yeah, fantastic episode 2. Great flashback scene at the beginning with the Indonesian legend Christine Hakim. I don't have any complaints. But yeah, to my point about the whole play-by-play exact faithful adaptation thing, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about that. Should the show have its own features that's different from the video game, or do you think that it should not deviate on its own? That it should always follow the video game. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, I'm gonna go now edit my next video review. Thank you so much for tuning in, and as always, subscribe. Let's rock this.